Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go right into episode 24 of the Lynette Hooker case. There hasn't been a lot of new developments, but there are a few things that I want to go over. So, beginning with the Lynette Hooker disappearance continues, and new developments have become central to understanding what may have happened that particular night of her disappearance. There was a recorded phone call made by Brian Hooker on April 7th, and the new concerns raised by Lynette's daughter after reviewing security footage from the Marina. The recorded call, captured by family friend Blaine Stevenson, lasted for 40 minutes. In that conversation, Brian described being in the water, struggling, and trying to get back to the dinghy. This version of events stands in direct conflict with the official statement he later gave to the authorities, where he claimed he never left the dinghy at all at any time. Investigators are now weighing the significance of that early, unfiltered account against the later, more polished version. At the same time, GPS data from Brian's devices have led the authorities, obviously, to expand their search into new areas. Those movements and patterns are completely different than the timeline initially reported by Brian Hooker, and they continue to change as new evidence and timelines are brought forth from the Coast Guard investigation and the Bahamian investigation. There's been some footage from the drones, ROVs, the diver team, and the cadaver dogs. The dinghy itself has been seized and is undergoing forensic testing and probably going to Quantico. Lynette's daughter has also raised new questions about reviewing security footage. She's noticed some flashes of light in the water, flashes she believes may indicate Lynette was closer to the boat than originally claimed. Combined with the shadow depth in that area, her observations challenge the idea that Lynette drifted away quickly and without any chance of returning. These developments don't provide answers, but they do reshape the investigation. Each inconsistency forces a closer look at the timeline and the events of that night. It's putting Brian Hooker in a position that the authorities are questioning and have deep concerns about at this time. Lynette's family, the search for answers has become a search for clarity. Every new detail, once again, brings that mix of hope and frustration that they have went through for now over 2 months. Every time they think they're getting closer, something pushes them further away as the stories continue to shift. They are left trying to piece together what happened to someone they love dearly, while navigating through information that makes absolutely no sense. In cases like this, early statements often weigh heavy. When those statements conflict with physical evidence, GPS data, or first-hand observations, investigators have to reassess the timeline from the very beginning. It's a painstaking procedure. It is very detailed, and that is partially why there is a delay in what many people think should be some answers to this case, or why Brian Hooker has not been brought in for questioning. They're still doing a lot of reviews, and they will not bring him in just based on speculation, but only on pure evidence that they have. As the investigators continue their work, the unanswered questions surrounding that night remain at the center of the search for the truth. And putting that aside for right now, the phone call that I mentioned earlier that was from Brian Hooker to his friend Blaine Stevenson was a very different phone call from what was given as far as facts to the police. On April 7th, just hours after Lynette had been reported missing, Brian placed a call to his longtime friend, Blaine and Marina Stevenson, When Brian didn't realize at the time was that the call was being recorded. The call was nearly 40 minutes long. The conversation that would later become one of the most scrutinized pieces of evidence in this case. During the call, Brian walked the Stevensons through what he said happened that evening. He described the two of them traveling by dinghy, heading toward their sailboat. According to Brian, a sudden little blow, as he put it, a little burst of wind, hit the dinghy. He said that Lynette lost her balance, bounced off the side, and fell into the water. But yet, he couldn't jump into the water with a flotation device or a life jacket to save her, and it wasn't even dark out. That does not make any sense whatsoever, and it's not making any sense to the authorities, and that is not the statement that he gave to them. He said the wind separated them quickly. It was something that he'd never seen happen so fast. Brian claimed he lost an oar, dropped the anchor, and yelled for her for nearly an hour. He told Blaine that the sun set about 10 minutes after she went into the water, making it almost impossible to see anything, let alone Lynette. He claims he never heard any sounds from her after she went overboard from the dinghy. Well, considering she's an excellent swimmer, it was not dark yet. You would think that if she was in distress that she would be yelling. He would see her in the water, arms flapping, even once it started getting dark out. But again, his story is changing consistently, or was changing, I should say, consistently. He's not speaking to anybody right now. He also mentioned having this phone call with his friend that he could only talk on the call through his Wi-Fi. He explained that he couldn't call for help until he reached shore. This detail would later become another one of the most questioned parts of the account, because how does his phone all of a sudden work to call Blaine Stevenson in such a short period of time after her disappearance if he was drifting and trying to get to shore for hours and hours and hours? I think 7 to 9 hours is what he's claiming. But somewhere along the line, he was able to pick up the phone and call his best friend. But yet he couldn't call Lynette's daughter for almost 24 hours after she went missing. Just doesn't add up to me. Throughout the call, Brian's tone shifted many times between emotional, overly descriptive, and it was beginning to make Blaine and Marnie Stevenson very concerned. Blaine later said that something about the story felt off and that the level of detail just didn't match the conditions he knew personally from the sea and that area. His recorded call was turned over to authorities, and it would later be compared, which it has been now, against the statements that Brian gave to authorities. It appears that 93% of the information provided in the phone call to Blaine Stevenson and his wife was completely inconsistent with the timeline of events and the statements that were made to the Bahamian authorities. So that doesn't sound real good for Brian Hooker, but none of this sounds good for Brian Hooker at this point. I have not still gotten a confirmation from any authorities other than the media, and I don't know that those are accurate, but I have heard that he no longer has the original attorney he obtained in Michigan, that now he has a male attorney that is only speaking to law enforcement, and pretty much all that's being said is no comment by anybody. So that's where we stand with that. We do know that Brian Hooker was spotted at the mall in Michigan with his daughter shopping, apparently with several shopping bags in hand. He's been to Oregon, and he has also been to California. And haven't heard much about his sick mother that he had to leave the island so quickly to go see because she was in such grave condition. So apparently she must be doing well. I'm so glad that that's happening. We have a lot of inconsistencies in this story, but it is far from over, and I will continue to update you as I get more information. Please check out my posts. I'm on episode 24. I cannot believe that this has had so much information to report. But unfortunately, as you know, the search with the Coast Guard came to an end almost a week ago. So the search for Lynette on land and sea has come to an end, and that is sad. It kind of gives us a clear picture that she is probably no longer with us, and the evidence that's mounting towards Brian kind of gives us an indication of where that's going to lead. So I'm sure we'll be talking about a court case in the near future. I will talk to you all later, and as always, take care and be safe.